story begins in a forest on the outskirts of Seattle, Washington. A young boy wakes up, naked, covered in a sticky substance, and looks curiously at the enormous environment surrounding him. Moments later, he sees a rattlesnake approaching, ready to attack him. Without being shaken, he grabs it in mid-attack and lets it go without any trouble. Not understanding where he is or where he comes from, the boy stands up and starts walking through the forest until he hears a noise. Thinking that he has finally found someone, he follows the sound until he reaches a tent and looks inside it. But the only thing he receives is the frightened scream of a young couple, so he immediately walks away. The boy keeps walking until he finds his way to the nearby streets, where he is amazed by the movement of daily life, without realizing that all the pedestrians are watching him in shock because of his nudity. Shortly after, the police arrest him for causing public disturbances and take him to a juvenile detention center. After several moments of confusion in the shower, the boy manages to remove the sticky substance and puts on the clothes they gave him. Later, the center director, Lou Daniels, speaks with him, is impressed by his situation, and calls the psychologist Nicole Traeger. Keeping her promise, Nicole cancels the Sunday breakfast she had organized with her husband Stephen, her teenage daughter Lori, and her son Josh, and gets ready to leave. Meanwhile, at the detention center, they take the boy to the cafeteria. There, he picks up a tray of food, sits down, and carefully watches how the others behave before copying them and starting to eat. Completely calm, after having found a way to satisfy his hunger, he eats all the food on his tray. Later, in the courtyard, a young man nicknamed Skier appears with his group and challenges him to a fight. The boy tries to copy his movements and keep up, but he quickly receives a punch that makes him fall to the ground, until Lou intervenes and stops the problem. Although the blow causes a nosebleed, the young man hardly seems to feel any pain. When Nicole arrives at the place and meets with Lou, they explain to her that the young man appears as John Doe in the records. While she watches him in silence, Nicole asks him to draw something he remembers seeing. To both of their surprise, the boy precisely draws the face of the young couple he had found in the forest. Afterwards, Lou shows her something else that catches Nicole's attention a lot. The boy has no navel. With the intention of keeping him away from the dangerous environment of the city center, Nicole decides to take him to her house for a few days and informs her children of the decision. The next day, Nicole takes the boy to her home. As soon as he enters, he's surprised to see baby photos hanging on the wall, wondering if he was ever that small. Noticing his curiosity about the computer in the living room, Nicole puts on an animated game for him, which he learns to handle in just a few minutes. However, shortly after, Nicole receives an urgent work call and has to leave, leaving Lori in charge of taking care of the boy. Completely bored with that responsibility, Lori sits on the sofa and gets distracted talking on the phone with her friends. When Lori steps away for a moment to talk with her boyfriend from the clan, the boy, left alone, hears a beautiful melody coming from outside. He follows her to a neighbor's house and, upon entering, finds a young girl named Amanda playing the piano. He stands behind her, fascinated by the music, and begins to cry silently until Amanda notices him. Overwhelmed and scared, the boy runs away. He quickly returns home, gets into the bathtub, and continues crying alone. Later, he is introduced to Josh, who looks at him with suspicion, and then to Stephen. At that moment, Amanda's mother, Carol, enters the house, clearly upset. After everything calms down, the boy joins the Traegers for dinner. While they are eating, with a dry throat, he says out loud a phrase he had heard before at the detention center, leaving everyone shocked. That night, Nicole and Stephen talk about him. The next day, when the boy leaves the house with Nicole and Josh, a strange man watches him from across the street. In his office, Nicole gives the boy an intelligence test prepared to last 1 hour, and he finishes it in only 5 minutes with a perfect score. Surprised, Nicole sends him to get an MRI, although the procedure is stopped due to a supposed failure in the machine. That night, unable to sleep, the boy goes down to the kitchen. He is impressed by the refrigerator and spends several minutes looking at it. Then he sees Lori, who had been grounded. She secretly sneaks out to go to a party, and he follows her. There, without realizing it, he tries beer, gets drunk, and ends up feeling sick, while Lori, upon discovering that Declan is cheating on her, also drinks too much out of spite. When the police arrive and everyone tries to flee in the middle of the chaos, an officer grabs Lori and starts taking her away. Desperate to help her, the boy goes through a glass door and, using his quick reflexes, manages to scare the officer until he leaves. Afterwards, he takes Lori back to the house without anyone discovering anything. The next day, the young man approaches Nicole and admits how scared he is. Moved, Nicole talks with Stephen and tells him that she cannot send him back to the center, that there is something special about him. Then, Nicole goes to the center to look for the young man's file, but Lou warns her that it has disappeared. Meanwhile, the strange man is parked in front of the center, reading that same stolen file. Back at the house, while Stephen works angrily after losing documents on his computer, the young man watches them with curiosity and, in just a few seconds, recovers them all by copying the codes onto another laptop. In another part of the house, Josh finds in his room a magazine that his mother had hidden from him, and, suspecting that it was the young man who left it there, goes out to thank him. Later, the family gathers for dinner, and Nicole suggests that the boys stay with them a little longer. The three respond with slight signs of approval that make him feel accepted for the first time. One night, the boy stays awake until dawn, thinking about how humans can sleep so many hours when there is so much to discover. He goes down to the kitchen, opens the refrigerator, and tries everything, from a banana without peeling it and raw eggs, which seem unpleasant to him, to chocolate syrup. After getting full, he walks through the living room and accidentally turns on a fighting movie. He becomes completely fascinated by it. The noise wakes the Traegers, who come down to see what is happening and are surprised to find him imitating the movie's moves and speaking Chinese perfectly. Stephen scolds him for the commotion, and during the conversation, they discover that the boy has not slept even once since he arrived at the house more than a week ago. Kyle spends the rest of the night thinking about people's obsession with time, and the next morning, he watches with interest as each of the Traeger family rushes against the clock during breakfast with Josh. Noticing that Josh peels a banana before eating it, he copies him and discovers that it tastes much better that way. Later, an investigator named Bryn visits Kyle at the house. During the conversation, it becomes clear that no one has reported a missing person matching his description. At school, Lori and Hillary, still upset about Declan's attitude at the party, confront him. Meanwhile, Nicole takes Kyle to his first medical appointment and introduces him to Dr. Stone, to whom she shows the results of the MRI scan. The doctor is impressed when he sees the young man's brain activity, which he considers impossible to understand, and decides to perform a physical examination on him. While accompanying Nicole to the exit, Dr. Stone gives her a strong sleeping pill and assures her that it will work. However, upon arriving at the waiting room, both are surprised to find Kyle being congratulated for having solved a complicated puzzle in just a few minutes. Back home, Josh comes up with all kinds of absurd ideas to try to explain Kyle's situation. Nicole, ignoring her son's exaggerated imagination, speaks alone with Kyle and encourages him to draw whatever he wants. Later, she and Stephen review the many drawings and notice that Kyle seems to capture scenes in his mind and then recreate them with impressive accuracy. To calm him and make him feel more comfortable, Nicole prepares him some chamomile tea while he watches the kettle with curiosity because of the sound it makes. When he finishes, Kyle accompanies Josh to the room, and both begin to get along well until Stephen and Nicole arrive to give them sleeping medication and wish them goodnight. 2.5 hours later, Kyle is still awake and feels a strong need to discover the world around him. He quietly leaves the house and spends several minutes looking at the night sky, fascinated by the beauty of the stars. During his walk, he notices that the strange man is following him in his truck until the barking of a dog makes him leave. Shortly after, Amanda watches him from her bedroom window, and they exchange a few words. Then Kyle returns home, where he meets Lori in the living room. Stephen accompanies Kyle to his room, and when asked what he had been doing, he replies that he was watching the stars. Concerned, Nicole calls Dr. Stone to inform him that the sedative did not take effect. The doctor warns her that if the situation continues like this, he would want to admit Kyle to keep him sedated. In another place, Lori, who had lost her job as a waitress for missing a shift, spends time with Declan. With the intention of physically tiring Kyle, Stephen takes him out to run, but in the end, he is the one who ends up exhausted upon noticing the boy's speed and endurance. Upon returning home, he finds Nicole looking at Kyle's drawings. They both decide to take turns watching him during the night and make sure he does not go out walking aimlessly again. At midnight, Nicole replaces Stephen, who has an important meeting the next morning. He recommends Kyle start counting backwards from 100,000 to try to fall asleep. The next morning, Nicole wakes up late and discovers that Kyle is still counting backwards. That same day, unaware that Kyle had overheard a conversation in which Stephen was questioning his place within the family, the boy leaves the house. Despite the intense search by the family and the police, they are unable to find him throughout the entire day. Finally, the Traegers run into the forest and find him standing on a log. When they ask him why he went there, Kyle replies that he wanted his family to be able to find him, leaving everyone deeply saddened. Upon returning home, completely exhausted for the first time, Kyle finds a radio, turns on white noise, and for the first time in almost 2 weeks, manages to fall asleep in the bathtub. The next morning, the family has trouble waking him because he is sleeping deeply and until very late. Nicole packs a bag for Kyle and leaves it ready for him to go to work with Stephen, while Josh gets ready to attend summer school. Shortly after, Detective Breen calls Nicole to warn her that Kyle could be involved in a crime. They found human remains in the forest, and near them, there was an access card with a strange symbol. At the office, Stephen leaves Kyle with the secretary, Allison, and enters a meeting with the CEO, where they talk about layoffs that are difficult to accept. Meanwhile, Kyle walks around the facilities, finds the server room, and begins reading the extensive technical manuals. At the end of the meeting, Stephen discovers that Kyle has disappeared and searches for him along with Allison until they find him sitting on the floor of the server room, with the server completely disassembled in his hands. Stephen leaves to deal with the problem as quickly as possible. That afternoon at home, Nicole shows Kyle a photo of the symbol that appeared on the security card, but he looks at it carefully and says he doesn't recognize it. Later, Stephen talks with Josh about the importance of passing summer school math exam, and then asks Lori to help Kyle with his homework, although she refuses to see him as part of the family. Nicole, looking for a bit of privacy, takes Stephen to the garage workshop to talk to him about the conversation with the detective. Without either of them noticing, the mysterious man listens to everything from outside. Josh, meanwhile, offers Kyle his favorite sweets so that he can solve his summer school math exam and then turn it in as if it were his own. The next morning, thinking that Lori had taken Kyle with her to work, just as he asked her to, everyone leaves the house and leaves him sleeping in the bathtub, while Lori goes alone to meet Hillary and keep an eye on Declan, who had told her he would spend the day playing golf with his father. Lori confirms her suspicions and is deeply affected when she discovers that Declan is spending time with other friends. At the house, Kyle wakes up late and feels hurt when he realizes that no one noticed they left him alone. While walking through the house, he discovers that the satellite television is not working, and wanting to help, he goes up to the roof to fix it. At that moment, Amanda drives by in her car, sees Kyle jump from the roof without any help, and out of fear, crashes the car. Lori arrives shortly after and takes him inside the house. In another place, the enigmatic man receives a call where he is told to better erase his traces. Inside the house, Lori gives Kyle clean clothes and takes the opportunity to teach him a lesson about lies. Later, Amanda arrives in a hurry to ask for help and hide the damage to her car. During dinner, Kyle is shocked to see how easily and confidently Lori and Josh maintain their lies. However, not fully understanding social rules, Kyle says out loud what he actually did during the day, exposing Josh. Later, Stephen goes up to the roof to look for Kyle and comfort him, and explains to him that lying to protect someone is also not the right solution. Meanwhile, Nicole has a personal conversation with Lori, who confesses that she had lost her job and had not had the courage to tell her. Motivated by his conversation with Kyle, Stephen calls his boss Brad and asks him to be honest with the workers about the layoffs, offering himself to give them the news. In another place, Carol reprimands Amanda for her carelessness with the car, but Amanda accepts responsibility for her own choice. Kyle returns home still hurt, although he manages to understand a little better the difficult world of lies and their reasons. The next morning, Stephen and Nicole wake Kyle up with a surprise. They have transformed the garage workshop into his room, with a tub in the center used as a bed. Kyle, who for the first time feels that he is truly part of that family, thanks them sincerely. Then, while Nicole places Kyle's drawings on the wall, she notices a connection between them, arranges them on the floor, and discovers that together they form the same symbol that appeared on the security card found near the human remains in the forest. That night, for the first time, Kyle has a dream where he sees himself swimming with Amanda, and he wonders if dreams show memories of the past or announce the future. The next morning, Nicole calls the detective to show him Kyle's drawing. The detective thinks that parts of the boy's past might be starting to appear in his mind. Later, Lori is instructed to take Kyle and Josh to the neighborhood pool, while Stephen and Nicole go to the school to register Kyle. In another place, the strange man called Tom Foss arrives at his office to leave his job and hands in his access card, the same one that has the symbol of the murder site marked on it. At the pool, Lori stays with Hillary while Kyle and Josh spend time together. Kyle, wanting to get closer to Amanda, who works as a lifeguard, decides to jump into the pool. Moments later, upon seeing him in trouble, Amanda jumps into the water to save him. The situation causes an unexpected physical reaction in Kyle, which makes him very embarrassed in front of everyone. Later, at home, Stephen has a calm conversation with Kyle to explain that what happened is completely normal, but that there are more appropriate times and places than others. The next day, Declan arrives at Lori's house and kindly invites her out, which surprises her, and they agree to go together to an upcoming party. Later, Amanda enters Kyle's room with the intention of talking, but upon seeing the large number of drawings he has made of her, she feels uncomfortable and runs away. Then, Josh makes a proposal to Lori. Instead of taking Kyle to the pool, they enroll him in swimming classes with Amanda. In exchange, Lori gets him the phone number of Ashley, the girl Josh likes. Despite his nerves, Kyle learns to swim in just a few minutes, and he moves in the water as if he had done it his whole life. After the training, Amanda approaches to congratulate him and invites him to her house the next day, when her mother will not be there, to show him something special. In another place, Tom returns home and finds Denise waiting for him with a threatening attitude, implying that she knows what he has been doing with the company access card. Later, Kyle goes to Amanda's house, where she shows him some of her father's paintings and explains that art is not about copying what is seen, but about expressing what is felt. Those words deeply impact Kyle, who discovers for the first time that he can show his inner world through drawing. Back home, Josh persuades Kyle to go to a party, and Kyle brings with him a drawing he just made of Amanda, with the idea of giving it to her and telling her how he feels. Meanwhile, Tom, in another part of the city, calls Denise to a supposed meeting and kills her. At the party, the three boys arrive with their own rules. Josh meets Ashley again, and the two end up in a jacuzzi until the security guards discover them and make them leave. Lori, on the other hand, gets carried away in a moment of impulse with Declan among the bushes, but she regrets it almost immediately. When she returns to the party, she finds Hillary drunk, trying to get close to Kyle, and she directly pulls her away from him. At home, Stephen admits to Nicole that she should be less strict with the children and treat them the same as Josh and Lori. Then comes the most painful moment of the night for Kyle. Amanda shows up at the celebration, accompanied by her boyfriend Charlie. With a broken heart, Kyle throws the drawing he had made for her into the pool water. The three of them return home earlier than expected, each carrying their own disappointment. A few days later, on the first day of school, Stephen and Nicole congratulate each other for having made it through the summer. With the kids at school all day, they secretly plan to spend a few pleasant hours together in the afternoon. They hurry everyone to leave. Nicole takes the kids to school, and Stephen heads off to work. Without anyone noticing, Tom watches everything from a distance, and as soon as the house is left alone, he secretly goes inside. At school, Kyle is fascinated by everything he sees. He tries to understand the reasons why different social groups are created, and he wonders if he will ever meet someone like himself. Lori tries to reconcile with Hillary, who ignores her and laughs at her clothes, even though she's wearing almost the same blouse. Josh, on the other hand, discovers that he was placed in the support group, and although he hides it with jokes in front of his friends, deep down he is very affected. In math class, Professor Miller proposes a challenge to the students. Whoever solves a certain exercise before the semester ends will automatically receive the highest grade. Lori, who receives a note from Hillary, is the only one whom the teacher surprises and sends to detention. In the support class, Josh reads aloud without any problem, unlike his new classmates, which draws the aggressive attention of a boy named Toby. Meanwhile, Kyle begins the first part of his 5-hour test, which is history, and when he reviews it, he realizes that none of the names or dates seem familiar to him. When the bell rings, Kyle leaves the exam classroom, walks through the hallways, and ends up entering Mr. Miller's classroom, where he sees the math problem written on the board. He solves it in a few seconds. During the break, Kyle goes to the cafeteria and makes friends with a lonely boy named LK, who also draws pictures. Meanwhile, Toby hears from his desk how Josh makes fun of the support class and gets upset. At home, while Nicole is getting ready to spend the afternoon with Stephen, unaware that Tom is still inside the house, she receives a call from her husband, who tells her he thinks someone is entering the house. Stephen quickly runs to that place and finds Nicole in Kyle's room, calmly talking with Tom, who claims to be a neighborhood security guard who saw someone forcing a window open. Not fully trusting the story because of how convenient it seems, Stephen calls the security company and confirms that Tom Foss is indeed a new employee with an excellent military record. At the school, LK takes Kyle to the library, where he spends the next few hours reading reference books. Later, Amanda approaches Kyle to directly ask him if he has romantic feelings for her. Knowing what Amanda would like to hear, Kyle tells her that he only sees her as a friend. Shortly after, Toby confronts Josh, but Kyle intervenes and protects him without showing any sign of aggressiveness, leaving everyone who was there surprised. The situation is stopped by Principal Hooper, who, although he recognizes that Kyle acted to stop the problem, decides that a boy like him does not fit in that school. In another place, Lori arrives at the detention room and finds Mr. Miller confused by someone who solved his nearly impossible math problem. Lori, immediately realizing who it was, proposes revealing the student's identity in exchange for being released from detention. Excited, Mr. Miller bursts into Director Hooper's meeting to insist that he needs to work with that student. Given the situation, the Traegers beg the director to allow Kyle to finish the exam in the remaining time so his results will be valid. With only 30 minutes available, Kyle finishes the exam to everyone's surprise. On his way out, he says goodbye to LK, who, impressed by everything he witnessed during the day, gives him a drawing depicting him dressed as a superhero. Kyle takes it home and puts it on the wall. Without anyone noticing, Tom, who had placed microphones in the Traeger house during his visit, watches them from the comfort of his apartment. On a rainy night, Kyle has horrible dreams in which he sees a bearded man staring at him intently. He wakes up frightened, and seconds later hears knocks on the window and manages to see a silhouette on the other side. Carefully, he approaches, opens it, and to his relief, discovers it is Declan. He lets him in, gives him a blanket and a pillow, and the two spend the night in the room. The next morning, Kyle informs Lori about the situation. Just at that moment, Nicole calls Lori from the kitchen to wish her happy birthday. Kyle secretly sneaks Declan out, but they run into Stephen at the entrance. Without getting nervous, Declan improvises and pretends he has just arrived at that moment to congratulate Lori. He joins the family for breakfast and compliments Nicole's pancakes. Seeing that family routine, Kyle wonders why he doesn't have one of his own. Nicole, noticing that Kyle is thinking too much, comes over and asks him if he had bad dreams. During the day, Kyle keeps having images of the bearded man from his dreams and ends up drawing his face to give it to Nicole. Later, when the electricity suddenly cuts out, Stephen goes out to check the electrical panel and discovers mud marks and signs of blood around the window of Kyle's room. Before he can check further, Tom appears and Stephen shows him the drawing Kyle made. Tom is clearly disturbed when he sees it. He quickly leaves and makes a call, warning that the boy is starting to remember. On the other hand, Tom reviews the recordings from his surveillance cameras and sees Declan climbing through the window. Not wanting to stay alone in her house during the blackout, Amanda goes to see Kyle and joins him in the bathtub. Meanwhile, to pass the time during the power outage, the group of teenagers decides to play board games. Kyle chooses the Ouija board and asks when his birthday is. To everyone's surprise, the board responds with a series of numbers: 7, 8, 1, 2, 2, 2, 7. Josh doesn't take long to joke about the situation with his alien theories, but Kyle, who considers that sequence of numbers as the only thing he knows about his own life, is deeply affected. Nicole, realizing how he feels, makes everyone leave and stays behind to comfort him. Later, Tom informs the Traeger family that, according to the police, there was a hit-and-run car accident in the neighborhood around 2 a.m. Upon hearing this, Lori confronts Declan, who admits he lost control of the vehicle in the dark. He crashed into another car and didn't have the courage to go back home for fear of his father's reaction. Declan says goodbye to Lori, telling her that no matter how everything happened, he almost lost her, and that made him open his eyes. Kyle, upset for not getting answers about his past, takes all his drawings off the wall until Amanda enters his room and comforts him. Both sit in the bathtub to talk, and Amanda tells him about his father. Later, after preparing a cake, the family gathers to celebrate Lori's birthday. She suggests to Kyle that he share that date with her, at least until he remembers when he was actually born. Kyle makes a wish, and together they blow out the candles. To end the night, Amanda gives him a kiss on the cheek that leaves him speechless. The next morning, Kyle sees in the newspaper a news story about the disappearance of Professor William Kern from the University of Washington, and he identifies him as the man from his nightmares. He immediately tells Stephen and Nicole calls Detective Breen, who, upon reviewing the crime scene images, finds the numerical sequence 781227 in one of them. During the following days, Kyle cannot stop thinking about Professor Kern, wondering how he could have dreamed about someone he does not know. Following Nicole's advice not to worry so much, Kyle goes out with the neighborhood boys and surprises them with his basketball skills. They encourage him to try out for the team, and Kyle agrees. Josh, excited, takes it upon himself to teach him the expressions of the sport and prepare study material for him. The next day, when Lori takes Kyle to practice, she ends up arguing with Hillary over Declan.
Inside the gym, Declan becomes worried upon learning that Kyle might join the team, fearing the consequences. However, Charlie convinces the coach to give him a chance. And when everyone looks out the window and sees Kyle scoring from incredible distances, the coach immediately changes his mind. At home, the family celebrates the news and talks about the upcoming championship game against Lance, the team that took their trophy last season. Stephen and Nicole, on the other hand, comment between themselves that much of Professor Kern's research was related to the maximum development of the human brain's capacity. Elsewhere, Tom receives a call warning him that the police might start linking clues to Kern's case. At the Institute, Josh, fully trusting Kyle's abilities, begins making bets among his classmates. At home, Charlie and Declan visit Kyle to talk about the team. Upon seeing Declan arrive, Hillary changes into different clothes, puts on makeup, and tries to get all his attention, creating an uncomfortable situation between the friends. Tired of being in the middle of the problem, Declan decides to ignore both of them and leaves with Charlie. During practice, while trying to compete against Kyle and beat him, Declan falls and injures his ankle. Later, Lori goes to look for Kyle and, noticing Hillary flirting with Declan, gets very angry. She interrupts the conversation and she herself invites him out. In another part of the city, Tom helps a homeless drug addict who was on the street without asking for anything in return. At the same time, Stephen and Nicole take advantage of being alone at home when they suddenly hear on the news that the police identified the remains found in the forest as those of Professor William Kern. Shocked, Nicole tries to contact Detective Breen, but receives no response. The next day, the Bisons get ready to face the champions in the basketball game. The game starts off promisingly, and Kyle scores. But as the minutes pass, the team begins to fall behind, and Kyle starts making mistakes. To make the situation worse, Declan is injured and can barely stay on his feet. The coach, however, demands that he keep playing, under the threat of losing his place on the team forever. Kyle then decides to say that he is also injured as a show of support, and the rest of the team does the same. The team loses by not showing up, but the unity of the group remains intact. At the police station, Nicole goes to look for information and is told that the man found dead had a record for attempted homicide and assault. Tom, from his apartment, watches as Nicole updates Kyle on the situation with Professor Kern. Meanwhile, Stephen discovers Josh's bets, scolds him, and orders him to sell some of his video games to pay the money back. In another place, Lori looks for Hillary and tells her that she no longer wants to keep arguing with her over Declan, bringing that issue to an end. The next day, Declan thanks Kyle for what he did during the game. That night, while he is sleeping, Kyle sees Tom killing Professor William in the forest. Noticing Kyle's great desperation for not being able to remember more things, Nicole hires a hypnotist to help him recover his memory. Kyle agrees excitedly. During the hypnosis, he remembers that he was inside a car in the forest and saw Tom murdering the professor. But when the therapist asks him to remember what happened before the crime, Kyle starts making strange and meaningless sounds, which scares Nicole and makes her stop the session. Afterwards, Stephen and Nicole talk about what happened, and Nicole calls the security company to fire Tom. When Kyle discovers that Declan plans to visit the University of Washington, he asks to accompany him, and Lori creates a plan so that the three of them can go. Meanwhile, Tom arrives at the Traeger house to talk with Nicole. The following afternoon, the group heads to the university, where they meet Anna, the research assistant of Professor Kern. Interested in Kyle's case, Anna agrees to run several tests on him, the results of which leave her completely surprised. While they tour the office, Kyle stands still when he sees a photo of a biochemistry student from 1985 who looks very much like him, which raises even more doubts. Convinced that they are closer than ever to finding answers, Lori calls her father and manages to convince him to allow them to spend the night at the university. Later, while the three spend time together,
Lori sees Declan talking to another girl, gets angry, and goes out to walk around the campus with a student named Wes. At home, following Josh's recommendation, Nicole slows down the recording of the confusing fragment of the hypnosis session and discovers that Kyle was repeating a series of numbers and letters in a continuous pattern, as if it were some kind of code. The next morning, Anna visits Kyle in his room and reveals that the young man in the photograph is Adam Balin. After Lori returns, the group meets with Anna and goes to speak with the former department assistant, who informs them that Adam Balin has been missing for 20 years. At home, Steven discovers that Kyle's sequence corresponds to geographic coordinates, but when he tries to access that location, he finds that it is restricted.
At the university, the group reviews boxes full of Adam's old research files, many years old. When they were about to give up, Kyle finds a drawing of the symbol he had made without realizing it, along with a series of numbers. At that moment, Steven angrily calls Lori after discovering that he had been lied to and demands that they return home immediately. Tom hears the conversation from his apartment and runs out. Although he had promised to wait for Lori, Kyle convinces Declan to go first to the place marked by the coordinates and then come back for her. Upon arriving, Kyle asks Declan to stay in the car and goes into the forest alone, where he finds a complex surrounded by a fence. While trying to climb the fence, a masked person pulls him down and attacks him. Kyle manages to defend himself, knocks his attacker unconscious, and upon removing the mask, he is shocked to discover that it is Tom. He wants him to forget everything related to his past, because otherwise he will put both his own life and that of the Traeger family at risk. When they return home, Steven and Nicole scold them for having hidden the truth from them and disobeyed. Kyle takes all the blame, and to everyone's surprise, announces that he no longer wants to continue investigating his past. Before leaving, he privately tells Declan everything that happened in the forest and asks him to keep it a secret. On the other hand, despite all the conflicts of the trip, Declan finally admits that he cannot keep playing with Lori's feelings, and they both begin a relationship. Inside the fenced facility, the head of security, Cyrus Reynolds, receives a recording from the cameras showing Kyle trying to climb the fence. Shortly after, he is called to his boss Rachel's office, who orders him to find the boy at any cost.
In another place, Tom receives a call informing him that the company will soon make the connection and send someone to follow him. At the house, Nicole, confused by Kyle's sudden change in attitude, tries to talk to him, but Kyle gently rejects the idea and tells her that he does not need psychological help. Desperate to support him in another way, Nicole calls Lou Daniels to ask for a recommendation for another therapist for Kyle, accepting that she can no longer be impartial with him. Realizing that he has an unusually strong sense of hearing, Kyle asks Declan for help in finding Tom. Both go to the surveillance company under the excuse of wanting to thank him for a favor, and they manage to get his address. Meanwhile, Cyrus finds Tom and confronts him, revealing that the company has already eliminated other people involved in the case. Kyle and Declan arrive at Tom's apartment, and while listening behind the door, Kyle is shocked to hear the voices of Lori and Nicole inside the recordings. As soon as Tom leaves, they enter the apartment and discover with terror that he had been watching them, with microphones hidden all over the house. Tom returns before they can remove the entire system, forcing them to escape. When he arrives, Tom realizes that someone had been there and sees the kids running down the street. Cyrus also observes them and follows them, with orders to act at the right moment. Declan and Kyle arrive at the fair, without knowing that Cyrus is closely pursuing them. Declan meets Lori and leaves Kyle alone, who is amazed watching the games and attractions with the innocent excitement of a child. Then Amanda appears and invites him to get on the carousel. From there, using his super hearing, Kyle hears Declan and Charlie talking from a distance and discovers that Charlie is cheating on Amanda with Hillary. Later, Kyle sees Tom being threatened with a gun by Cyrus and, using his super hearing, manages to overhear the conversation. A few seconds later, to the surprise of everyone there, Kyle collapses and begins to convulse. They quickly take him to the hospital, where the doctors report that he is stable and resting. The hospital's radiology specialist receives a call that makes it clear he was bribed to alter the results. Meanwhile, Declan manages to convince Lori to let him go in to see Kyle, and he tells her what he witnessed at the fair, Tom's boss pointing a gun at him. Kyle thanks him for everything he has done for him and tells him that now, more than ever, he needs to rely on the Traeger. When Kyle is alone, Nicole comes in to talk with him. She admits that lately they haven't had honest conversations. and that the relationship that formed between them, so similar to that of a mother and her son, is precisely what has complicated her work as a therapist.
On the other side of the hospital, Lori discovers in horror who Hillary's secret boyfriend is when she sees Charlie and her acting inappropriately. Shortly after, to everyone's surprise, Detective Breen lets in a couple, David and Julia Peterson, who claim to be Kyle's parents. While Kyle, Josh, and Lori react with disbelief and desperation, the Petersons explain to Nicole and Steven that they thought their son had been kidnapped. They also inform them that a DNA test has already been started and hand them a family album so that Kyle can go through it while they wait for the results. After being discharged, Kyle goes to his room and goes through the album page by page, but he cannot recognize any face or remember any of the moments shown in the photos. Upset, he returns to the living room and bombards the Petersons with questions about Adam Balin and the symbol he has seen several times, without getting any clear answers.
The next morning, Kyle gets ready to go to church for Amanda and Josh's confirmation. To everyone's surprise, he decides to go with them. At the house, Steven and Nicole stay looking at the album and try to silently understand what all of it could mean. After the ceremony, Kyle tries to talk to Amanda and give her a gift, but Carol pulls her away before they can speak. When meeting with Declan, Lori, and Josh, the four talk about the case and the possibility that the Petersons really are who they say they are. Elsewhere, Rachel calls Cyrus to her office and makes it clear that there can be no evidence of the experiment outside the company. At the house, Lori warns Hillary about the dangers of being with someone who cheats on their partner. Later, Amanda visits Kyle in his room, and although he pretends to be fine, she notices that something is worrying him.
When the Traeger family prepares to receive the Petersons at home and strengthen the reunion with Kyle, the results of the DNA test arrive. It is a coincidence. Kyle makes it clear that he does not plan to go with them. He cannot imagine leaving the only family he knows. While he's returning home without realizing that Cyrus is following closely behind him, Kyle is sedated and kidnapped. He wakes up in the back of a truck, flooded with terrifying memories. In the forest, the pieces of the night of the murder begin to come together clearly. Kyle relives the exact moment when Tom killed Professor William. Then Tom reveals himself as his kidnapper and explains that this was precisely the reason why he warned him to stop asking questions. At that moment, Cyrus appears from the darkness of the forest and begins shooting, injuring Tom. Kyle acts quickly, helps Tom get to the car, and escapes with him driving.
Tom refuses to go to the hospital and advises Kyle to run away, but Kyle refuses to leave until Tom tells him the whole truth. Why doesn't he remember anything from before that night in the forest? And why are there people who want him dead? Later, just as the Petersons are about to leave the Traeger house, Kyle appears and leaves everyone shocked. Nicole, controlling her emotions, advises them to find another therapist for Kyle when they arrive in Connecticut. Kyle, to everyone's surprise, announces that he will be ready to leave the next day. Josh, hurt, leaves angrily without saying a word. At the farewell party, while everyone tries to hide their sadness, Declan privately confronts Kyle for putting himself in danger for him and for keeping his secrets without receiving any response in return. Afterwards, Charlie approaches Kyle to justify himself and downplay what happened with Hillary, assuring him that his relationship with Amanda is what truly matters. At the house, Steven and Nicole silently pack away some of Kyle's belongings, accepting that, although it is painful, this is what is expected in their job. At the party, Lori comforts a very affected Hillary, while Kyle and Amanda say goodbye with the promise that it will not be forever. They hug emotionally before Kyle goes to his room to pack his suitcase. Nicole comes in to speak with him one last time, and seeing that he is not carrying his drawings, Kyle tells her that he will make new ones. Although he is upset, Declan comes down to say goodbye. Then Josh arrives, who has been avoiding the situation all day, and tells Kyle that in the end, he turns out to be just a normal boy with normal parents. Kyle says goodbye to each member of that family, the only one he has ever known, and gets into the car. When Kyle leaves, Nicole enters his room and cries uncontrollably upon feeling the pain of having lost someone she saw as a son. On the other hand, Declan enters Kyle's room and finds a box with a message addressed to him. Meanwhile, in the car, Kyle holds back the urge to cry and calmly confronts the couple, telling them that they are very good at lying. They respond that it is their job. In another place, Tom receives a call where they tell him that the company will go after him, and they confirm that he told Kyle to leave with the Petersons to keep the Traegers out of danger. Kyle recalls in his mind the last words Tom told him. Before that night in the forest, he simply did not exist. At the company, Rebecca and Cyrus study the situation and confirm that the trail of documents has reached a dead-end point. Kyle is then taken to a closed facility, where to his surprise, he finds Adam Balin, who offers to explain everything to him and guides him inside. At the company, Rachel and Cyrus continue talking and mention that subject 7812228 is in very good condition, and somewhere inside that facility, a figure marked as XX781228 remains suspended in a thick pink-colored substance. Thus ends this first season.
More videos created for you on screen. If you like this channel, subscribe and turn on notifications.